This is the game that Wall Street and the world and your employer and everybody else is saying is retirement, retirement, retirement. This is when it's all going to end up being what you hoped it would be. And I'm telling you, it's a lie.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Joey Murray. Joey is the co-founder and partner of Wealth Without Wall Street, dedicated to helping individuals achieve financial independence through passive income strategies. After over a decade of success in the mortgage industry, Joey shifted his focus to empowering others to break free from traditional financial systems and building lasting wealth. Joey is the co-host of the podcast Wealth Without Wall Street, and also the co-author of Wealth Without Wall Street, 3 Steps to Freedom Through Passive Income. Joey, welcome on the show.
Man, so glad to be with you today.
Yeah, Joey. So tell us a little bit about what you do in the financial space, I see.
Well, I think it's summed up really well, is that, man, the true way to wealth, the true way to financial freedom is when your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses. And if you've been listening to Peyton for any length of time, you know that some of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs, business owners, and even, let's say, highly paid professionals is that sometimes our business owns us and our time is not our own. And so what I would say is, man, if you pull up your calendar app on your phone right now, maybe not if you're driving, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But when you get a chance, pull it up. And I just want you to take an audit, if you will. Look at your calendar and say, man, how many blocks on this calendar are things that I dictated to my calendar versus someone else dictated to me? Mm. And if you're okay with it, with that number, whatever that is, whatever percentage that is, then you should probably turn off this episode. I mean, no offense, Peyton, but
you're killing my
eyes. But if you're not okay with it, if you're like, yes, this is exactly what I've been thinking about, is I don't have the freedom that I set out to create, either by building my own business or climbing this corporate ladder, then that's what we're going to talk about, is how you can be the one in charge of what goes on that calendar so that you can do more with the people that you love and you can have more impact. At the end of the day, that's what really drives me, Peyton. And that's why I left my mortgage business for over 11 years to pursue this, because I knew that there was so much more impact I could have in people's lives if they understood what we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome, Joey. You came out of the gates spitting fire there. I like that. And yeah, listeners, that's so true, right? Like all of us that get into entrepreneurship or self-development, you know, those types of things, really, it is about freedom, right? I mean, that's why I started my first business, because I didn't want anyone telling me what to do day to day. I thought it was stupid. So I wanted to do my own thing. But like Joey said there, if you're not careful, even though I've had some success and I've ran my own business for a long time, if you lose, you know, and I would say for a certain period of time, I did kind of lose that number one goal of why I did this, of like freedom wise, right? If you're not careful how you build your business, you can end up creating your own new calendar prison. You just own the job.
Exactly. And I think one of the other challenges is that people are business owners and highly paid professionals are really good at making money actively. Like they have active income, but they've never actually produced passive income. And so the big aha for me came, Peyton, this was probably, 10 plus years ago. I'm sitting there driving my then 3-year-old daughter to her preschool. And she's just sitting in the back seat. And you kind of imagine she's got her little harness on in her child seat. She's got her bow in her hair. And, we live in the South, Peyton. So the bow is huge. I mean, it's like massively.
Oh, yeah, way bigger than her head.
And she's just sitting back there. I have 5 daughters. So when one of them is one-on-one with me, they have all the words. Like they cannot help themselves. They're just going to talk to dad. And so there's this little voice comes from the back seat. She says, "Dad, you going to pick me up from school today?" And I'm just thinking, That's kind of an odd question because number one, I don't ever take her to school to begin with because I'm at the mortgage company, before everybody wakes up and I'm getting home right in time for dinner maybe or thereafter. She knows better than to ask a question like, am I going to pick her up? Right. Yeah. But this is going through my head and I say, no, your mom's going to pick you up. And then she says, well, why are you not going to pick me up? I said, well, because I have to go to work. Why you have to go to work? Well, I have to pay for this car. I have to pay for our house. I have to pay for the groceries at our house. We already have a car. We already have a house. We already have food. And Peyton, I'm just going to tell you, like at that moment, it was the simplest conversation with this innocent little 3-year-old girl. But man, it just pounded me. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, I just had to tell my daughter, who at this point in her life, at this moment, which, they all get older, at this moment, all she wanted was dad to be present. Yeah. And what I said to her is, I have to go to work. I have to. And the reason I said that is because I was the only asset at work in my household. If I didn't go to work, if I didn't keep my foot on the gas pedal, everything fell apart. Mm-hmm. That's called the rat race. Yep. And the only way out of the rat race is I have to have my money producing passive income that I don't actively have to go to work for. When that happens and it exceeds my monthly expenses, I can be free to respond to my daughter differently. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I left that conversation dropping her off. And I called up my business partner, Russ, and I said, Russ, I got to create some passive income. Like this is going to change. It was like I drew a line in the sand. And I was like, this is never going to happen again. And that really set us on this journey. So I don't know if anybody else is in that same boat, but you have your own story of where you couldn't go to your kid's ball game or you had to ask off for fill in the blank and you were worried about taking off too much time or whatever the case may be. But there's a problem and then there's a solution. And that's what we're going to talk about is the solution today.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a powerful story. I got 2 young daughters myself, a young son. So not that exact same story, but similar situations. I think I mentioned on a show here a while back that my daughter drew a picture, had a bunch of sad faces on it, and it said tax season. And
oh man,
you want to talk about like a shot, right? Or that hits you, as a dad that that cares and wants to be involved. It's understanding that stuff, and that certainly is motivating. Certainly motivating for you to get your life organized, your calendar, your finances, everything in your life designed in a way that allows you to have maximum freedom to be able to do what you want to do with whoever you want, whenever you want. But there's some things, a lot of work you got to do to get that lined up first, and something that doesn't necessarily happen overnight.
For sure, yeah. And here's the thing about it. That's one of the biggest objections I think that people have to this whole idea is they're like, yeah, that just sounds really hard, right? It's really hard to build passive income. It's really hard to, stop doing what everybody else is doing, like funding their 401ks and IRAs and like hoping for the best in retirement. Mm-hmm. But here's my question to you is which hard do you want to pick? Right? Do you want to pick the hard of maybe going and working your 5 to 9 before you work your 9 to 5 for a season so that you can buy back all of your 9 to 5 time? Yeah. Like that is the trade-off. I'm going to give up time today to invest in this process, or I'm going to trade those conversations like you and I've just had with our kids until it's too late. Right? And then what? Is my kid 35 and now they want to spend time with me once I quote unquote retired? Right? No, they don't want to spend time with you when you're 35.
They have their own lives. Yeah. They got their own.
Right? You may not even have your health at 65, right? So there's this idea that retirement is the end and that's what we're like pushing for. And we're trying to accumulate to this unknown variable of numbers that Wall Street's told us that that's good for us. And the reality is all of life is just passing us by. Yep. So my question is pick your heart. Which one is it? Mm-hmm. So anyways, we can get into more of the specifics, but man, you got to be bought into the why. It has to be really big because it is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard for sure.
And say that, big enough why you can bear anyhow, right? And it is hard because it's habitual, right? It's habits, it's psychology, it's what your parents thought about money, all these things you've learned, throughout your life, right? But the thing is, the process may be hard, but it is generally simple. It's formula. It's not complex, right? Everybody generally knows what they need to do. They just don't do it. That's right. That's the problem, right? But yeah, I mean, the concepts are generally easy, right? Like spend less than you make, invest the difference, and keep piling that up and generating passive income until, your income's not really needed anymore.
That's right. Yeah. And I would say there's 3 steps to this, Peyton, as we think about this. I don't know how quickly you want to get into this, but I'm happy to dive in.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, at the end of the day, you think of it like there's a mountain in front of you of financial freedom, and you got to break it down into like steps to get there. Mm-hmm. The first one is just like, you're going to climb a Mount Everest. You got to get to base camp first. And I would tell you that base camp is one of the number one most important processes that people need to go through. It's where they unlearn some of the things that the financial system, i.e. Wall Street, big banks, things of this nature, they've told us some things to do with money that don't really line up with this idea of financial freedom. And I'll just give you a couple of examples if that's okay, right? Number one, you have to be the one in control of your money in order for you to start creating passive income, right? So my example, when I was in the mortgage business, I was funding my 401k. I had well over $200,000 in there within a very short amount of time. But you know what? There were deals when I was in that mortgage business where real estate deals would come across my desk. Mm-hmm. And they were good deals. Like there was really profitable opportunities for me to maybe double that money in a relatively short amount of time. But I never took advantage of one of those. And the reason was because all my money was locked up in a 401k where I didn't understand what it was invested in. I didn't understand why it went up or down because of some political person who tweeted something stupid that ended up tanking the market. And I did understand real estate, but I couldn't access any of that money to take advantage of the deal. So it was someone else's opportunity, not mine. And so in order to start producing passive income, I had to stop putting money into things like 401ks, IRAs, and things of that nature because I needed access to my money today. And, people will say, well, Joey, I get a match. It reduces my tax liability today. If I put money in 401k, I get a match. It's actually a decent return right now. Bob, fill in the blank. There's all these reasons why people say this is good for you. But the one question that is very objective, you should ask yourself is, does putting money into fill in the blank help me get closer to or further from financial freedom? And the only way that can happen, it has to increase a passive income or it has to decrease a monthly expense. And so I would say, when I put money in 401k, do you increase the passive income today? The answer is no, right? It is literally being invested in a long-term, cannot touch it for 20, 30, 40 years, depending on how old you are. Does it then reduce a monthly expense? The answer is no. There's no expense associated with it. It's just taking money pre-tax from my paycheck and putting into something that I can't touch. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't increase the passive income. It doesn't reduce the monthly expense. Is it getting me closer to financial freedom? The answer is no. It's actually getting me further from, because now I have the opportunity cost that money I cannot get access to actually produce a passive income today. And so the baseline that we always walk with our clients through is, man, take an inventory, audit your own financial picture, and ask yourself, are these things helping me or not? And it's not because I'm telling you it's a bad thing or not. It may be the perfect thing for you, but it has to line up with what you say you want it to do. So that's just kind of step one. We can dive into more questions around that if you want, but I just want to kind of lay the foundation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great. I think it does all come back to just being intentional around everything you're doing, right? If today's financial freedom is the goal, yeah, everything needs to be lined up to that, right? And, you're talking about 401ks and yes, obviously the vast majority of people have them or access to them. I work in the space quite a bit myself. Not all your money should be tied up in something like that. And of course, everybody's situation is unique and individualized, but I do find it as important especially as you grow, you continue to get momentum and grow up kind of the wealth ladder, I would say, is that post-tax money, like alternative type things, can be very lucrative and very, very advantageous. And it's something I've focused on a lot in the last few years myself. I am a finance guy as well, so I am very much a stock market type of guy to a degree, but it's certainly not something that I just have all my money locked up. You know what I mean? Like it's never a good idea for, anybody to just have all their money locked up forever and suffering through most of their work life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what I find is, Peyton, is that most people are hesitant to do what I'm talking about, is to stop putting money in those things because a couple of different reasons. One, it's not popular, right? Well, everybody does this. Everybody has money in 401ks. Everybody, funds an IRA or 529 plans or whatever the case may be, all the alphabet soup that's out there. And they don't want to be different than everybody else.
Scary.
Well, I can tell you, you want different results. You got to be a different person.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, like, you can't follow the absolute herd and expect a different result. It's just not going to happen. But the second thing, I think the reason why people don't want to do this is because when you stop putting money into things that you don't understand, like 401ks in the stock market, largely, I would say most people put money in mutual funds. They can't even tell you what companies are in the mutual fund, let alone what those companies do or the people that run them. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that that's not a good investment in any way, shape, or form, because you got to understand those things. But the second reason why people aren't willing to do this is they don't know what to invest in, right? They haven't become an investor. And that was true for me, Peyton. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, what should I invest in? I would have said, like, to create passive income. I would have said, I don't know, maybe like a single family residential rental property, because that's all I kind of had experience with and had seen. Yeah. But, we've interviewed over 500 people on our podcast, Wealth Without Wall Street. And now we've invested in over 21 different income streams ourselves. But that didn't happen overnight. And you have to become an investor. You have to turn on that creativity in your brain. And when you have access to cash, guess what? Your cash starts begging you to become an investor. No. Your cash. It's like, hey, I'm sitting over here. I need something to go do.
I'm idle. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to be lazy cash, which this is a third thing people are doing, is they're keeping money in cash, which is not keeping up with inflation in any way, shape, or form, and they don't know what to do with it. So this is like step 2 in the process, is you get access to your cash in the first step. And we would dive into the idea of infinite banking concept, putting money into these very strategically designed cash value life insurance, whole life insurance that is designed to always be growing, whether we use it or not. And then the second is become an investor. Create your buy box, figure out your investor DNA profile, like your personality. And once you do that and you start to really be able to read a PPM, right? From an investment, to be able to look at investor deck and say, there's a problem with this, right? I'm not going to buy into this deal because of this, this, and this, but you have to be trained on it, right? And so we've developed all sorts of like helps to people, because guess what? We have the arrows in our back from making all the mistakes. And so we want to help people in that second step, become an investor.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously, crucial with all this stuff is to get as educated as you can about the finances and all the different investment opportunities, because like you said, there's unlimited things you can do with money, but you need to dive in, pick something, right? And maybe find ways to mess around with it or play with it where it's not such a huge, commitment up front, where you're kind of testing the waters a little bit.
Sure.
And you play around with that kind of stuff. And then eventually you just got to jump into something, right? And start playing. And that's how you become an investor, right? And that's how you get the experience and whatnot.
That's right. Yeah. And I think if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you know this very well. I mean, you may have known something about what you're doing. You may have been a good technician in another job, and then you're like, man, I need to go do this on my own. That's great. But you know that there was a lot of lessons learned in those first few years of being on your own, and that just don't come in a book. You're creating wealth in something totally different in your business. And most people that are business owners, entrepreneurs, think that means they can be an investor. But being an investor is different than being an entrepreneur or business owner. Like there's a whole different skill set and a whole different world of taking that active income and producing passive income with it. And so I just think, man, be humble enough to recognize that there's differences and that you have a real learning curve that you can either take it on the chin by making the same mistakes we did, or you can shorten and compress the time and take the shortcut and say, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this before I get all the prizes, if you will.
No, I have to take the punches to the face, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's the wise man learns from other people's mistakes, right? And it's just learning from other people's mistakes. But yeah, you do got to be committed. And you're right. The ability to earn money and the ability to invest money are two totally different skill sets. And I do have clients, and I've had clients over the years that are making 7 figures, don't have much money. They could be 3 months away from bankruptcy because they don't know how to do anything productive with it, right? And despite, me trying to help them or whatever, there's a lot of psychology and money issues going on there, behavioral issues that it's not easy to just crack through, right? And that person has to want to be different for anything different to actually happen. Yeah.
It's something I don't know if this is related to what we're saying or not. I'm just going to throw it out, but I think a lot of times people, we've talked a little bit before the show about the difference between like a tax preparation firm and a tax strategy firm like your own. And I think there's something about that with an entrepreneur. Like a lot of people that have tax preparers have just blindly put money into things like 401ks and IRAs because they were told this is how you can reduce your taxes.
Yeah.
Today.
It's the lowest hanging fruit.
Right.
Common thing everybody knows about.
Everybody's like, I asked my accountant, how can I save on taxes? This is what they say. I mean, it's almost nine out of 10 times. This is the only thing that they're talking about. And what I would tell you is the opposite is actually true. If you can become an investor and then work with a tax strategy firm, all of a sudden the tax savings today is not nearly as important if we can build true passive income and wealth with it today, and then work and then reduce that tax liability by being very strategic, right? Don't buy into this idea of deferred taxes is my friend, because I can tell you your taxes today are a known commodity. Your taxes 30 years from now are completely unknown. There's literally no tax preparer, no tax strategist. There's nobody that can tell you what you're going to be doing in a tax situation 30 years from now. And if they tell you, oh, by the way, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket by then, how in the world can they know that? Yeah. That's like a variable that is unknown to everybody. And yet they say it so confidently, like, oh, by the way, you're going to be on fixed income. Well, guess what? If you're an entrepreneur, you're growing every single year, getting better, improving yourself. Listen to podcasts like this. You're gaining. You're not retreating, right? You're not like everybody else who has this idea that I'm just going to retire one day and live off of 30% of what I'm living off of today. That's a lie. I'm just telling you. So anyways, that may have been totally off the wall, but I figured we're talking about.
And that's good. Yeah. And, you know, the flip side of that, you know, when I see in my world a lot is that people do build up large amounts in pre-tax accounts, such as 401ks or whatnot. And then I spend most of their 50s and 60s trying to fix that problem. Because, you know, without getting way into the weeds and whatever, things called required minimum distributions, like you can have tax nightmares in your 60s and 70s if, you know, you've really built all your wealth in a pre-tax account, and reasons, you know, that I've seen enough in my career that I don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, and I really try to advise my clients, it's like, yeah, you know, pre-tax accounts and, you know, in my practice, my business, sure, great, have their place, good place to, you know, build some net worth, but like, that's certainly not our only bucket, right? Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. And when tax planning is done right, it has a positive return on investment. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of Squires Tax Planning. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head over to squirestaxplanning.com. There you can take our free assessment to see how likely it is that you are overpaying on your income taxes. From there, you can also book a free tax discovery call with our team to see what it would look like to have us working for you. So, you know, Joey, just kind of turning the conversation to you. What have you found is like your most rewarding experience on this journey? Say, since you left the mortgage industry, you started working in the financial industry. What would you credit as your most rewarding experience?
Well, number one, personally, I would say I bought back a lot of my time to where I don't have this treadmill mentality about gotta keep my foot on the pedal at all times. Yeah. I'm able to take, like last fall, I took 3 weeks to go take my family to Europe for the first time. And I didn't worry about the active business or any of the passive businesses that we have because it was all being covered. We'd built a business that doesn't require me every day, day in, day out. And man, that's just a richness that it's worth all the work. Let's just put it that way. Being able to pour into my daughters, you know, we homeschool our kids, and being able to find what's their unique gifts that God's given them. What's the specific way that they may be able to add value to this world, and helping them to build passive income sources. Like one of my daughters has a land business that she's built. One of my daughters has a content website that has affiliate revenue that gets paid every month. And she's also helped to do a vending machine business with me and my business partner. And she's being able to see how that all works. And, you know, she made a very simple comment to me the other day. She said, you know, Dad, I'm not going to have to work like everybody else, because I know now how to do a lot more with a lot less time. And it was just like, that is rewarding. Like my daughter is seeing the fact that you trade your time for money at some level.
Yep.
But why would I trade it at the same rate that my peers are? Like I have the ability to make a whole lot, like a buy back my time. That's super rewarding. And then like from a community standpoint, some of the biggest, most rewarding things for me is just hearing the stories of people like Rick, who he had a previous marriage, older kids. He got remarried and has a younger little boy. And he said, he was at one of our conferences and he said, man, I just want to be able to have breakfast with my son every day. He's like 6 years old and he knows how important those moments are at this level of his life. And 6 months later, he had made a major transition, left his corporate job to start a land business where he was now buying large tracts of land with investors and splicing them up into smaller subdivided lots and selling them for 100% kind of profits. Mm-hmm. And is it an active business? Yes, but he actually was able to learn how to trade his time on his own terms at a much higher rate per hour. Mm-hmm. And guess what he said? Man, I'm getting to have breakfast with my son every day. Yeah. I was like, dude, this is a major win, like a life changed. And the more people are doing this, building their own passive income operating system, like we talked about in step 1, step 2, becoming an investor, and again, in his case, it was more of a active business that's going to become passive over time. And other people, it's just like, I don't have any time to build the active business because I'm too active right now. But them starting to see how to keep score. Like, hey, I just created $1,000 a month in passive income. I have $10,000 a month in expenses. I'm 10% of the way to freedom today. Like, when people are talking like that, I know we're making an impact and lives are being changed. And that gets me really, really fired up.
Yeah, man. And that, me and you have similar passions, right? Around, money and education and financial freedom and all that stuff. And that gets me excited too, right? When I'm thinking about somebody understanding that, like, wow, if I could sacrifice a little bit, maybe hustle a little bit harder right now, sock away this money, put it into something that, that sets future paying up, right? To have passive income. And you're right. We just constantly trade our time for money, which time is the most scarce resource, right? We all got a finite amount of time. We can always go make money. They print it every single day. So money is certainly not as valuable as time. And the younger you can realize this, the better, right? Because you can get this set up earlier in your life and live off the fruits of it. But the second best time is now. Mm-hmm. What's the only other choice? Is now, right?
That's right.
It does get me excited that people will realize that the process, while it can be hard, especially if you're starting out and don't know how to be an investor, don't really know any of that stuff, you just got to start. But you realize that once you get into it and you start learning this stuff, once again, it doesn't have to be complex. It's simple principles that allow you to start buying your, I always envision it as, okay, I've made excess income. I have this excess income that's sitting here, this cash. What kind of income can I go buy with it? Anytime I've built up cash or whatever, I'm looking for income to go purchase. And that way, anytime I build up money, I'm looking for more income to buy.
Yeah, you're thinking very wisely. And I think that's, if anything, somebody listening today, they have their mindset shifted, just that ever so slight shift, it will set them on trajectory of freedom. Yep. Period. If you could just think cash flow, not accumulation. The world is all about accumulation. It's about a someday. It's about maybe once things slow down, I can quote unquote retire. And I'll just give you this as another quick picture. I was at the beach with my family. I had my Wealth Without Wall Street swim shirt on. Of course, you got to be branding yourself wherever you're at. And this old lady walks up, and older, I should say. She's probably 70 or something like that. And she says, tell me about, what's that on your shirt? And I told her about the company and everything. And she's like, well, me and my husband, we retired this past year. And I hope it's enough. Like that was her words to me. I didn't like try to prompt or anything like that. And it hit me. She said out loud what everybody's thinking. And it's at the summit of her whole financial journey. What was she working for 40 plus years? She was just peeling dollars off and just stacking it up, hoping, accumulating, putting it in there. And I would say, this is maybe a bold statement, there's a level of scarcity in that process.
Oh yeah.
Like I need to hold back on what I could spend today because I need to keep putting away for the future. Right? And that's not a good or bad thing. I'm just saying there's an element of scarcity that I have to put money away, and otherwise I'm not going to have anything left over. But then she gets to the summit of retirement, and she's got this pile of cash. How big or small, I don't know. But where her first words are, I hope it's enough. The question I'd have for you is she thinking abundantly about what she could do with that money? Is she thinking all of a sudden, man, this is a game changer. Now, all these things I've been putting off, I can start doing. I can travel more. I can experience life and all these things. I can give more. I can be involved in so many things that I want to do and be, just free with this money. Oh, it's the opposite.
Yeah. It's the same mindset she's had all through her working years.
And by the way, is there ever something you do for 40 years that all of a sudden you change and do the opposite?
Yeah. I have that conversation with my clients all the time where it's like, hey, you guys are great savers. I'm going to be yelling at you to spend money the whole time.
But this is the game that Wall Street and the world and your employer and everybody else is saying is retirement, retirement, retirement. This is when it's all going to end up being what you hoped it would be. And I'm telling you, it's a lie. I'm telling you, it is going to be a major letdown because your life is not going to look like you think it should at that point. And your regret is going to be the next thing out of your mouth. So
yeah. And retirement, like you said, it's this kind of carrot that society almost puts out there in front of us or whatever, right? Maybe to keep us on the hamster wheel. I don't know. But it's just not playing that game, right? Like you don't have to play the same game everybody else plays. I've always considered myself somewhat of a contrarian. I like to be a contrarian. I like to be a contrarian investor. I like to be kind of an independent guy. That's why I ran my own practice all by myself for so long. Like I kind of like doing my own thing. And that allows you to, once again, you said not going with the herd all the time, right? Mm-hmm. All around the herd, you're going to doom yourself to absolutely average to below average results because that's what the herd gets. Right. And being willing to step out of sight of that in an appropriate way for your situation, that's where all the gains are at. Or I would say the outsized gains or the ability to find real estate deals or whatever. And of course, again, you've got to be educated in that stuff. You're not going to know what you're doing at the beginning at all, but get around good people that have done it before and bring them in on the deal. And then you'll know how to do it. And then you can go do the next one. So it's just all about educating yourself and being willing to change your identity, being willing to become an investor, being willing to do something different so you can have something different.
Exactly. 100%. And, Russ and I are not just thought leaders in this space. Like there's a lot of people that say a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of things and we share it with the world. If you want to dive into our individual, what we do personally to produce passive income, we share our personal report every single month, looking back on the month, what happened, good or bad, wins, losses, lessons learned. And we share it, and we've been able to produce over $50,000 a month, but combined between the two of us, just in our passive income. And I think that's what you really need to do is you need to get with the people who are doing what you want to have done. Those are the models that you need to follow, not the people who are talking about what they're doing, like what's possible. You need to see what are they actually doing. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit weird to talk about, with the world. Yeah. But I think at the same time, it helps people to realize, man, this is real stuff. If two rednecks from Alabama can build $50,000 a month, anybody can. So that's what we're about.
Yeah, man. And same kind of thing. I built my stuff, small guy from rural Missouri, town of 1,000 people. So yeah, I mean, I totally relate to that. And it's just willing to invest in yourself, right? In your own education and your ability and confidence and everything that comes along with it.
For sure.
Joey, man, this has been a great convo. What is the best way people can get to know more about you, your company, everything that you got going on?
Well, obviously check out our podcast if you get a chance. You like this sort of stuff, we can talk more about it. Wealth Without Wall Street. We also created a page just for your podcast. It's wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/behind their success. And if you go there, we have our contact info. We have some free giveaways and things that will help you to get an idea of what we're about and learn more. So love to connect with you and let me know that you heard me on Behind Their Success.
Awesome. Joey, any last words or parting words of advice here?
I think at the end of the day, just believe that you can do something like this. Like, this is not, Wall Street wants you to believe that you're not smart enough, you don't have the education, that this is too complex of a process, that you can't invest on your own. And the opposite is true, right? The opposite is true. You are actually the best investor for your money. And the reason is because you care more than anybody else does about your money. This is probably a bad analogy, but it would be like me saying, hey, you know what, my 5 daughters, I don't know how to be the best dad. I'm just not that educated. And I'm sitting there holding, one of my newborns and thinking, I'm just going to hand this off to somebody else. Like, somebody else can just raise this kid because I'm questioning my ability as a dad. The truth is, because you're not the investor you need to be today, you have to dive into being an investor. Because you're not the dad you want to be today, you have to dive into becoming the dad that you want to be. There's nothing else more personal than your family, than the money that you have. And to hand that off and abdicate that to somebody else because you're buying the lie that you are not smart enough or can't do it, I'm just going to tell you, lose that and you'll change your life.
That's great. Well, that's great advice, guys. And Joey, I appreciate you, man, for coming on. You guys can do it. You can be an investor. You just got to go learn it and dive into it. Well, guys, thank you for listening to the show, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.